Facebook. Oh, whoops.
Woohoo!
We are back on you. We are recording. If you want to clap it in, and then we can get this bad boy on the go.
Christian taught me that you're supposed to. It's better to isolate the clap. If you do this, and then leave your hands there, it's harder to isolate where the clap is. Whereas if you do this, it's a lot easier when you're looking and looking for the sound.
Are you an editor?
No, I just picked that up today when we were doing it. I was like, it'd be way easier if we do this.
Anyway, here we go.
Oh.
Here we go. Welcome to Was It Good? I'm your host, Ravi, and I'm with my two brothers, Christian and Arjuna. We've spent the last week and a half reflecting on the protests taking place in all 50 states and in at least 18 countries around the world in what is now the biggest civil rights movement in human history. It's heartbreaking to think that it took the senseless murder of George Floyd for the racial inequality in this country to come to this necessary breaking point. We stand on the side of justice. We stand with those peacefully protesting. And we hope our listeners are doing whatever they can to be on the right side of history. There is no more sitting on the sidelines. Sitting on the sideline means you've picked a side, and it's the wrong side. And we mean that in the most literal, moral sense that we can convey. We often use our TV shows, our movies, our games to convey important messages about the human experience in all its complexity and scope. Today, you don't need to watch Watchmen or Star Wars to witness a worthy struggle, a worthy cause against oppression and tyranny. It's happening right outside our doors. We must never again let ourselves become complacent. We must not let our favorite shows and movies become escapes from reality. Rather, they should be viewed as an insight to the human condition and something we learn from. This is something we here at Was It Good will try to do. And to add to this, in our description across the board, YouTube, Twitch, podcasts, wherever you consume them, on Twitter, we do have links so that you can actually go donate. You can figure out where people are protesting so you can go and support people. I personally, and I believe you two back me up, Christian and Juno, when I say this, we're not simply here to just make a statement and be done with it. This is an ongoing cause, something that we cannot stop talking about. It must be spoken about, but also more importantly, people need to act on this if we want to see real and actual change.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, right? Because if we do stop talking about it, if we do get complacent, guess what? We're going to be here in another 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and it's going to keep repeating, right? So let's just learn, and let's do what needs to be done, get it solved, get it done, so that we don't have to be back here in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, change is needed, and I think it was well written and well said in that intro that we need to. It's sad that it took this senseless murder, but this change, it has caused a lot of change so far, but there's a long way to go. And like you guys have said, we got to keep talking about it. And this is a podcast about movies and TV shows, and I think, we have to do better. We've talked about this. We review a lot of popular media. I think we need to diversify what we review, and we need to talk about diversifying what's out there. Because you've seen, I work a little bit in entertainment in some of my many jobs, and many, actors of color have come out and talked about how there is a lack of diversity in writing rooms. There's a lack of diversity, in production, a lack of diversity in casts and different shows and such. And I think if we start reviewing some of that stuff that's not necessarily mainstream or popular and talking about that and putting the pressure. Yeah, we're a small podcast. We're not huge or anything.
I like to point out in my little brain, I think we're the biggest thing on the internet.
According to our parents, we are. So that's two people. But I mean, that's one very, very little way we can change and we can help, and continuing to do the other stuff that needs to be done too.
Speaking about societal issues, tyranny, obviously we know that the police have been brutalizing everyone under the sun. I made the really bad joke the other day when the video clip of the LAPD started taking out the baton and beating the crap out of everyone. I was like, look, the police, they figured it out. They're equally beating the shit out of everyone. Bad joke, but unfortunately, that's one area that I wish that they would kind of figure out and defund the police essentially. That would be a big, big help. But moving into the actual show now here, one interesting thing that came out and was came out last weekend at this point, so 2 weekends ago, was the Attack on Titan Season 4 trailer. A show that actually does talk about classism, does talk about the oppression of people, which I think is very interesting. And I think as you start looking at content now, I think we're going to start looking at content differently, where it's like, is this a full-on representation? And I think you're going to start seeing people, like, to what we said in the intro that Christian wrote, like, escaping from TV shows and everything. I think is the main interesting thing, but I digress. Anyway, Attack on Titan Season 4 trailer. What was our thinking there when we all saw it?
Well, I think let's get the monkey, identify the monkey in the room right off the bat. The elephant in the room.
Megatron?
Besides Megatron. The animation style looks different.
Big time.
And you can notice that right off the bat. It was apparent. And I was like, oh, is it the characters that are older? But then Arjuna pointed out, no, the animation style is actually completely different. And they actually went with a whole different, what's the right term? Studio? Company?
Animation studio.
Animation studio, yeah. So that actually makes me a little bit nervous, to be frank. This is an animation. It's not a live action thing. So to me, the animation in an animation in an anime is very important, right?
Yeah.
And I would like consistency in the fact that in the fourth and final season, it's going to be totally different. Well, hopefully not totally different, but a little bit different at least from the first 3 seasons. That does make me a little bit worried. That being said, the trailer was quite epic. But I'm still worried about that animation. So I actually want to get you guys' thoughts on that.
Did you like the animation?
I don't know. Because it is different. And I would have to go back and watch it again. I think it was fine. I didn't see anything in that. I was like, oh, this is lower quality. It's just different. And and it's just a little bit like, I remember, like, to me, Attack on Titan has a very specific visual feel, like really sharp, contrasting colors. I'm not an artist, so it's hard for me to describe exactly, but like really sharp, clear images. And I don't know if it was the YouTube quality of the video, or if it was the actual animation itself, but it seemed to be less sharp, the animation. But that might be just the YouTube.
I'm not really sure. When I first saw it, I thought it was like a fan-made thing. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because there's a lot of good fan-made content out there. But you could definitely tell there was definitely an animation difference. And like you, Christian, I'm not one with the art.
Right.
So it's hard to describe. Those listening, if you hit us up on @wasitgood on Twitter, if you are aware of the difference in animation styles and can better explain it, you'll definitely get a big shout out on this podcast, because I do agree it did feel a little bit different. Soft is a weird way to kind of explain it, but
it did feel soft,
it seemed
right?
glossy to me. So I watched it on my phone this morning, and to me it was like shinier. Like I almost feel like the first 3 seasons a little more matte. There's not as much shine because it's a dark type of world, where, as Ravi mentioned, there is a lot of imbalance in class and such. And this one felt, I think, also because they are in the mainland now. That's pretty apparent from the new trailer. Maybe the sun shines brighter there. But it definitely seemed glossier, and to me it seemed a little more epic. Like it seemed a little more theatrical almost. The animation style, just the smoothness of it.
Oh, interesting.
Is the impression that I got.
Maybe it must have been then the quality of the YouTube that we were watching on.
Why do you say the YouTube?
The YouTube that we were watching it on.
It's all the same YouTube.
Every YouTube is different.
No, it's the same freaking YouTube.
The specific YouTube that we were watching
a
couple mornings ago, I'm just saying. I now have reason to believe that maybe it was our internet connection at that specific time. Maybe it wasn't the best.
I mean, I watched it on a phone and it looked good.
Yeah,
I looked good.
Either way, I'm very, very excited for this.
Yeah.
I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong, the release is supposed to be in like 2 months, like July, August.
Probably September.
Oh, that's too far.
I agree.
I'll be at home sitting on my butt.
I'm a little worried. So I'm not worried really about the animation style. What I'm worried about and this goes back to the end of last season when they announced season 4 is the last. There's still a lot of manga. I believe that they're really truncating. There's like 3 or 4 main arcs left, and they're really just down to just this last season.
But this goes to like the Game of Thrones thing, right? Where it's like, granted, the manga is finished already.
It's about to finish.
It's about to finish.
Yeah.
But it runs into that same idea where with Game of Thrones they said, hey, Game of Thrones is going to be its own separate thing from the books. Don't necessarily look for it as like a tomato, or I don't know.
Tomato.
No, like where it's like a direct comparison. You guys know what I'm talking about?
It's not a 1 equals 1. It's
Yes.
like it's so. So are you saying it's like that? It's like Game of Thrones? Like
yeah,
you're
in a
not
sense,
looking
like
for,
yeah. So don't like
You're not looking for a translation. You're looking for an
Correct.
adaptation.
Exactly. That's what this is supposed to be, is an adaptation of the manga. It's not supposed to be a direct.
The manga itself.
Right.
No, this is a pretty direct. This is not an adaptation. This
Really?
Is, this
I
is,
would consider
No.
like
this
the
is-
first 3 seasons have been verbatim.
This is verbatim exactly what happens in essentially.
fine. Let me
Interesting.
redo my statement here.
Wait, how do you know though?
Because
Thank you, Michael. It's apples to apples.
Thank you.
Tomatoes, tomatoes. What's
It's
the 1
it's-
equals
It's
1?
potato to French fries.
Yeah.
You know.
So here's my new statement. So
Okay.
the first 3 seasons are a apple to apple, and the 4th season they said fuck it.
No, I believe that this last season they even though it has not been published, I'm pretty sure they knew the ending. So it's supposed to.
That makes me
incorporate
nervous.
that.
Game of Thrones, same idea.
I mean, like many animes, you can just look at the manga and look at the anime, and the frames are pulled.
yeah,
You know, so
right.
a lot of them.
But that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
But and I think that's just the nervousness. I think comes from loving the
Thrones?
show a little bit, but more than that, like loving the show so much. Like this is, in my opinion, and granted, I'm not an anime expert, and I haven't seen even a lot of anime. I've only seen a select few, but to me, it's the best animated thing I've ever seen.
Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z is great.
What about Dragon Ball?
Attack on
Avatar
Titan is
Z.
better. Avatar is great. Attack on Titan is better.
I don't
Full
know
Metal
about that.
Alchemist.
I cannot get into that.
Well, there's something wrong with it.
I know.
Clearly.
I know.
Wait, isn't Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood supposed to be the better one?
That's So Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the direct. Is what the manga is, and Full Metal Alchemist was like Game of Thrones. It diverged from the source material.
Afro Samurai. It's not like a true.
It's okay. It's overrated.
Really?
Overrated.
I love Afro Samurai.
It's good. It's good. And
Samurai
I think visually, Afro Samurai is incredible.
They got
But-
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, and no, don't get me wrong. Samuel L. Jackson is also incredible. But the whole package. I think Avatar is the whole package.
Avatar's the whole package.
We got people in the comments
Attack on Titan.
saying Avatar, no question. Look, listen. A part of me agrees with you. Avatar is, but Attack on Titan is better for me. I understand why people would say
But what's the
Avatar.
reasoning?
I enjoy it more.
Is there something tangible you think that's better about Attack on Titan versus Avatar?
Oh yeah, definitely the
Yeah.
fight scenes.
I think
They're so much more violent.
there you go. It's more violent.
It's for 2 different age groups.
Yes.
One
And
was
I-
for
and I
children,
think-
like, and also like
One was
Attack-
for children and one is Avatar.
I think the
Yeah.
other thing though with Attack on Titan there was like
No one got that.
there was like a major like there's major like shock value to it where like you introduce Attack on Titan to a new person and they're like, well, what's the show about? It's like, oh, giant humans eating little humans. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And then you get into the show and you realize there's all these other fucking layers to it and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I think that's where it's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Avatar-
Like Attack on Titan, kind of go off of your point, is
Yeah.
one mindfuck after another.
Yeah.
You're like, as you learn about the history and what's happening, what's actually going on, right? And you can pull that into what's going on today. Layers and layers and layers of stuff. And it goes from this crazy, fantastical, like giants eating humans, right? Into this whole other thing involving politics and classism and all this other stuff, and it's intertwined so beautifully, right? Don't get me wrong, I love Avatar. I love the idea of reincarnation and the spiritual aspects that are in that show. I love it, absolutely do. But to me, Attack on Titan is just a different level in terms of the complexity, the complex ideas that they do, and how well they present them. And then also just, I will always be able to watch Avatar, and it's like something you can throw on at any time.
Sure.
Attack on Titan, and this is a strength to the show, is always going to grab you and hold your attention. It's not something you can just throw on. It's like it's going to grab you. It's going to hold my attention no matter what.
So one interesting fact about Attack on Titan, specifically with the manga, the last few arcs. So Attack on Titan was very well received, obviously, when it first started. Or a lot of it because of the twists, the mind fucks, the story. Especially with those first 3 chapters, you're introduced to all these characters. They all die. Like those types of really well done storytelling. But these last few chapters and volumes, like a couple we saw at the end of season 3, and I think a lot of what we'll see in season 4, were actually criticized.
Oh, really?
So the popularity of Attack on Titan, the manga, went down actually. So a lot of people felt it got away from what it was originally.
Oh, it has.
Yeah,
it definitely has, but to me that's the strength. But
yeah, but that's where it's like that's why I'm like because like in the show it's gotten better season over season, right? Season 3 is by far the best season compared to like obviously season 2 or season 1. But like with season 1, you got that starting point where you have all these cool characters that you're introduced, and then they all tragically leave and exit stage. And season 2, you're getting more information about the world, what's going on, and season 3 is just like, what is happening? Like this shock value after shock value with story and change and all that fun stuff. Before we kind of move on from Attack on Titan and jump into another anime, Castlevania, one of the big staples of Japan and Japanese cultures in terms of anime was Gundam. And Gundam, first Gundam, I believe, aired in the 70s. Yeah, around the 70s. And then, they've made adaptations, extended storylines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a new Gundam series actually coming out in August, Hathaway, which takes place in the Universal period, which is the main one where the original Mobile Suit Gundam takes place. Gundam became like a big staple anime iconic thing. Do we think potentially that Attack on Titan could run into something similar? And the reason I bring that up is because one of Gundam's big success was little itty bitty human powering this gigantic mecha and having awesome and amazing abilities and fighting tyranny and fighting whatever and like being that source of good. With Attack on Titan, it's a little bit similar with what's his name?
Eren?
With Eren, right? Where he's little kid, tragic upbringing essentially, is able to power this gigantic, humanoid mecha, you could argue.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Do we think that potentially down the road, maybe 5 years from now, 3 years from now, we hear of the new telling or retelling of Attack on Titan? They've already, just so you're aware, they've already done like a cutesy, funsy, like reanimated style of.
They love doing that stuff
of Attack on Titan, where they're all the I forget the animation style, but they're like the cute little cuddly type things, and it's not obviously as violent.
Like
it's more fun, right? But they've already done that. Do we think there potentially could be like Attack on Titan Mars Edition or Attack on Titan Underwater Edition, or I don't know why I'm going to locations, but you get what I'm saying.
Are these different like temples from Ocarina of Time? Like I gotta go to the water temple to get the missing Triforce.
Yes,
piece?
we're driving into the whole Zelda franchise too, because fuck it.
Yeah, I personally hope not. I hope it's just this.
Yeah,
and it's nice and.
I mean, anime.
Put a bow on it.
Yeah, animes largely live and die by manga.
Yeah,
and I don't think there's any plans for any continuations at this time. I mean, it honestly depends on how it ends too, right? Like if we're there's a lot of mysteries, especially where we're at with the anime, with kind of there being the lineage of the Titans, and there's kind of like pseudo time travel, right? So like if they really continue to open that up with this ending, you could do anything, right? If you have like a multiverse of Titan worlds, like you could you could really open up the show. Yeah. But if it kind of
do you want to do that?
Well, I don't know. Like I
don't know. That's the most PC answer I've ever heard.
Well, no, because it depends on how the show ends, right? If the show ends and the arcs are kind of done, and it's let's say all the Titan lineage is over, then it's like I don't know what more you can do unless there are some crazy ideas you can do with these Titans. Like it's got to be very different from like this this like it's got to be a different theme, right? Like the classism is the big one of these two warring races, and there's racism and classism.
I mean, it would be interesting.
You could do something similar, but I think it's got to be like it's very medievally, right? You know, with the castles and the swords and everything. Like maybe do it in space, right? Or maybe like really change it up or something.
I mean, we're gonna see in this season where they have like where it looks like World War One, maybe World War II type weaponry and guns, where even some of the Titans have like machine gun armaments placed on them and stuff, which gets very kind of like Gundam-y if you think about it. But it might be kind of cool to stay in this timeline or in this universe and like look at the first Attack on Titan before Aaron's father, right?
You could do prequels.
You could do the prequel stuff. Like I feel like there's more storytelling that you could do, which is kind of cool.
Or you could do a Gundam versus Attack on Titan thing. Gundams and Titans in the same universe, kind of.
That would be kind of cool.
No,
I wonder what would win.
no,
Probably the Gundam.
but no.
I would assume the Gundam.
Not necessarily.
Gundams are built to withstand the horrible pressure of space.
Yeah.
Anything that can withstand space probably has a huge advantage over something that's just bound to.
We don't know if the
planet.
Titans can. They could be resistant
Maybe,
to space.
but doubtful.
Maybe we haven't met all the 9 forms of the Titans.
Well,
there could be a space
Titan.
But you
Oh
also
my
have to
God.
remember too, like the humanoid Titans that aren't like the ones with like Titan powers, like they are able to destroy them by simply using swords on their skin. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
How
by that,
strong are they?
yeah, they're not. Yeah, Gundam would probably destroy
and you
the
could
Titan
shoot. You could
easily.
shoot a missile at a Gundam. You know.
No,
the
they're made of-
sword.
They're made of special
missiles.
metal that they can reject.
Yeah, it's
the
called
missile.
So you bring in X-Men and you put the adamantium in the Titans, and there you go.
They already have
moving-
adamantium.
So moving on to things that have superpowers, Castlevania Season 3, we finally all got through the newest Netflix original anime based on the some year video game called Castlevania.
Series,
Right off the bat, wow.
It was good.
Wow. Fuck me.
Fuck me. Wow. Donkey.
Yeah, and I think just to jump right off, I think the thing that really saved this season versus the other seasons is they split off the characters, and you had these distinct storylines, and they were all fascinating, and it was fascinating to see them all kind of go on.
And because there were 4 storylines, it never felt slow. I think one of the weaknesses of the first 2 seasons is that we were stuck with certain characters over episode after episode after episode, and had to fill each episode like all 25 minutes.
Well, the first season's just it was originally made as a TV movie.
It was a 4-episode thing.
And it was made into 4 episodes. But
The second
each season covers a very small period of time, right?
Yeah.
And I think they struggled from going from like a TV, like a movie length, to a full season in
Agreed.
season 2. And they tried to introduce all these new characters, and it was just mostly Dracula kind of brooding in his castle, being a little bit whiny.
I'm a vampire.
Yeah, essentially. And then it was like the 3 main heroes in a library for 8 episodes.
Reading books is
Yeah.
great.
And then
With
finally
the
you got
occasional
some,
with the occasional forced fight scene.
yeah,
you know, it was
and
like,
then
whatever.
finally you got the penultimate episode in that season of the big battle, which was great, but it just took a long time to get there. While this season there was a lot going on, and it was interesting.
This season, to me, the biggest difference from this season is that it didn't need to rely on big action sequences to keep things interesting. There was like mysteries in all 4, like good, compelling questions in all 4, and because there were four storylines, you could keep switching and sort of keeping the viewer not off balance, but pulling them along. Like if you just took Isaac's story, put it by itself, it's actually probably kind of boring.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
But because his whole story up until the very end is all character development. That's all it is.
Who?
Isaac,
Oh,
the Forge Master, right?
There's 2.
Right, the other Forge, one of the Forge, the free Forge Master. There we go. But because they were able to split these stories up, when we did go to him, to me it was like very refreshing. We get a little bit of character development, like really interesting conversations. He's clearly dealing with some stuff, and that worked. I think that worked because then you're able to balance action and character development very well. And it's hard to do. It's a really hard thing to do. Someone like Ravi who doesn't appreciate a lot of character development, right? At least
you got called out.
I think what I mean by that. What do you mean? You've said it before. You hate character development. You don't like a lot of character development put into one.
I just don't want
long
all
thing.
character development.
Yeah.
I don't care that much.
Exactly. Right. So I think the strength of this season was being able to split it up and then manage the action in each episode.
Right. And I know like not everyone was a huge fan of season 2 at this table, but it did lay the groundwork with a lot of these characters to make season 3 good by introducing Hector, Isaac, Camilla, those characters who were very prominent in this season and had their own storyline. Specifically Hector and Isaac. If I went back when I was watching season 2 and I saw these characters, I wouldn't have guessed that they were going to be
where they are now,
main characters.
Yep.
But in doing a little bit of research, Hector, one of the Forge Masters, so in the Castlevania series, there's actually a series of games where he's a playable character. He is the main character. Same thing with obviously.
Wow.
Same thing with obviously Trevor Belmont.
Yeah.
And then also Alucard. He's also another character that you could play as. So you have like 3 protagonists who are from the main game series that are in there.
I wouldn't be shocked, and I'd be willing to bet, and I'm actually willing to do this now at this point. I think season 3 has by default made season 2 better. Because we've seen sort of where these characters end up, I think going back and rewatching season 2 would be a far more enjoyable experience.
You guys didn't like season 2 over season 1?
No, I loved it.
I like season 2.
Yeah, I like season 2 over 1.
I also was able to watch basically season 2 through season 3. Like I watched them back to back.
Oh, nice.
And I think you're right. Kind of seeing the full arc all the way back to back is refreshing and well done.
So just to clarify a couple things, Michael, these two did like it. They did like season 2. He said, I'm not caught up. And he says, you guys said not to bother with season 2. If we did say that, these two, probably said don't bother with season 2. But these two are all for it. And in retrospect, after watching season 3, you should definitely watch season 2.
The tough thing with this show is it's about like 18 months between seasons.
Why is
it
that tough?
Is quite a bit.
Oh, in terms of release?
Yeah, it's a long release, right? So like 18 months from now, you're gonna forget a lot of the stuff that happened this season, and then you kind of, it's kind of the Westworld problem a little bit.
That has its own problems. We won't touch those. In terms of things that we liked and disliked, I'll start real quick. Isaac was probably by far the most interesting thing of this season.
Really?
And the reason
I'm shocked that you were saying that.
No, I'd like to, because Isaac, for all intents and purposes, he teamed up with Dracula to turn dead people into monsters. He's a pretty bad dude, but the way he was presented was a very kind of interesting way where it's like, is he kind of like,
is he bad?
Is he bad when all of humanity's bad and he's just like wipe them all out at this point because fuck it? Yeah. And I thought how he was presented was kind of interesting and unique, where it's like, it's the Jaime Lannister approach essentially, where it's like, that person's an a-hole, but at some point you're like, I kind of like you, but wait, you're an a-hole, and it's bad.
So to me, he was never presented as an a-hole. Like with Isaac, I think from very early on, I could be mistaken, but we get his backstory, I think, fairly early on in season 2.
Yeah,
right at the beginning.
You see that he's like tortured as a kid, and he actually, and we see it multiple times in season 3. He tries to give humanity the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
And he's always like, why do I keep doing this?
Move aside.
Yeah. And
otherwise.
And in that way, you can sympathize with him, right?
Yeah.
It seems like in this show, the characters that are presented, very few are actually good, redeemable people. And so at least a part of me was like, he's kind of got a point. At least in this world, it seems like, with what we've been shown so far, probably more people than not deserve to be wiped out.
Yeah.
Right? Now, who's the judge, the jury, and executioner? That's a whole different story. Of course.
That's an actual plot line in the show.
The show, yeah.
Yes, of course.
And the other thing that's interesting about Isaac as well is one of his creatures that he creates actually is the entire reason for Trevor and Sypha's entire storyline, is because that creature convinces a bunch of crazy monks to basically figure out how to go and open a portal to hell so that Dracula can come back. I would say my least favorite thing was Alucard as a character has always been fascinating and interesting, and I think they touched upon some aspects where it's like, he has a pretty shitty life because of who his dad is. Like, that's kind of hard to deal with. But, like, how we kind of got there with those two characters, I don't know. In our outline that our June actually put together, Vampire Hunters and Getting on with Her Life, or
I called it Alucard, Vampire Hunters, and Getting On with the Rest of Your Life.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially where Alucard is when we find him. He's killed his dad. He doesn't really know what to do. He's clearly depressed. You see at the beginning of season 3 has 2 dolls of Trevor and Cypher
Which,
there
by the way, is hilarious.
that he talks to. It's also great. There's a great
He's
joke.
like, oh, I am going mad.
There's a great joke in season 2 where he talks about like his dad. He's
yes,
like,
and this is that.
yeah,
So real
it's a
quick,
great joke.
you're gonna say it. This is very important, I think, when viewing him in season 3.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The joke is like he's like, yeah, like feels like it was just like yesterday when I would like fight with my dad. And he's like, well, it must have been years ago. He's like, no, it was literally recently.
Like a month ago.
He's like, I'm just a teenager.
So no, think about that. So think about this, right?
Yeah.
This guy is probably what, 16 to 18 years old,
at best.
and this shit is happening to him. I think that reframes it a lot
Yeah.
because these two humans have come in and they're clearly taking advantage, right? And using the fact that he is, by all intents and purposes, a pretty young person.
Yep.
Just barely older than a child.
Yeah, he's naive.
Now,
yeah.
if you reframe everything that happened with him, it's actually very creepy. Very creepy.
You think about that. Also, a fun fact: do you guys know who voices Alucard?
No,
I
don't.
If you guys remember Battlestar Galactica, Gaius Baltar, the actor.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Alucard.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, which is great. You look at him completely different when you realize it's his voice. But Alucard's storyline, I kind of agree with you. The season was going, I was like, okay, where's this going? Like, who are these people? Like, what's happening? And then when you have the twist of them trying to kill him, and then he puts their bodies on pikes, you're starting to see him become Dracula.
Yes.
And that's what I thought was really cool, right?
That was
They've
awesome.
gotten rid of Dracula and like, oh,
Yeah.
he's not trusting humans now. He's closing his doors.
He's closing his humanity.
Yeah,
He's closing
exactly.
off
Well,
to it.
but here's the thing, right? The humans have done this both to Dracula and now Alucard,
Yeah.
which just reinforces Isaac's whole position.
Mm.
That's what I really love about this show, and I think that's what season 3 really hammered home, is that no one is really in the wrong here, with the exception of maybe of the 4 vampire sisters. They right now, and I think they've tried to humanize them a little bit, like with some of that relationship stuff, and the fact that it seems like they have a conversation where they were turned against their will, at least some of them,
Yeah.
and how it took them a while to get over that.
Right.
And now they've become the very thing they hate, which is interesting to me. I hope they do more with that in season 4. But with the exception of them, maybe everyone else has like very black has like light side and dark sides to them, and I think that's a strength of the show. That's why I really enjoyed this season.
Right. Yeah.
So speaking of season 4 real quick, obviously the second to last episode, we got a glimpse of Dracula and his wife in hell, which, by the way, we're now learning. I mean, I will say right off the bat, I'm not a big knowledgeable person on the Castlevania games, but like Arjuna researching it, they talk about the multi-dimension like crazy, and hell is just another dimension in which horrible things exist. So I thought that was really cool.
That is founded on some psychedelic trips.
Yeah.
So people have slightly off topic, very off topic, but people have done enough psychedelics in terms of DMT and ayahuasca and stuff like that, where they think they have visited a different realm where all that crazy stuff and real demons exist.
So there's an episode. It's like the last 10
Yes.
minutes of an episode.
Yes.
Where I forget his name, but he's voiced by Bill Nighy.
The magician.
The magician character.
I don't know his name, though.
Who says he's a time traveler, right? Or he like
Wait,
travels
what?
through dimensions.
He's a dimension traveler.
Dimension
Yeah.
traveler, right? He like uses his stone and he travels like 3 dimensions. And I watched this for 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm high right now.
Yeah.
That
Because
entire
was
sequence
the best
was
part.
weird.
And me and Ravi
Yeah.
talked about this. The best part of the whole season is he's going through that, and in one of the dimensions, a spaceship is just rising out of the.
Well, yeah,
the
there's
thing.
like
And then
robots.
there's like a
and
mecha like walking on him. He's just like, what the fuck? And we're like, what the fuck?
and the animation style changed as well, which
Yeah.
was super, super cool.
Also-
and the music. The
Yeah,
music
music
was
was
so
well.
good.
Well, shout out. One of the strengths of this season 2 was all the different voice actors they got. So they had Bill Nighy for that character. The head of that town was voiced by Jason Isaacs, the guy who plays
no.
Lucius Malfoy.
No.
And
the
Lorca.
bald guy?
Yeah, the ball. That was
Lucius Malfoy.
and Lorca from Star Trek Discovery season
no
1.
one cares about that shit.
And then Louis Riddick, who plays the head of the crime unit in season 1 of The Wire. Do you know who Louis Riddick?
Yeah.
I forget
who that
the
is.
character's name.
Kinda
I'm forgetting
older
his
guy,
name.
right?
Yeah, he was the voice of the sea captain
Wait, what?
Yeah, that was the sea captain.
Interesting. Problematic, maybe, but interesting.
But I mean, still a
Great job,
still a
but-
great voice
yeah.
cast all around. They got a lot of
Top-notch people.
top-notch voice actors for this season.
So season 4, 2 big questions, I think. Is Dracula coming back? And then number 2, and more importantly, when the fuck are we actually going to get season 4? Is it going to be 2 years now?
I would my guess would be early 2022 if or mid 2022 with
Damn.
if you add in the corona delay. I think that you're going to get with a lot of stuff. And then I think Dracula has to come back at some point simply because it's called Castlevania. It's his castle. Like the games are about him. Even in the games, like he does die and he is reincarnated, like and comes back. I think he will be back in some form in future seasons.
Here's my guess.
Maybe not next season, but at some point.
Alucard will basically lose his humanity and just kind of go on this crazy tirade, and Dracula's going to be brought back to put him down.
Oh, what? Wow, I didn't not see that going.
Well, because
I
remember,
see you go that way.
remember Dracula's with his wife, so one would
Yeah.
assume that if Dracula's being pulled out of hell, she's going to come with him, and that's her son, and she does not want her son to be Dracula.
Right.
So she's going to basically like, Dracula, you got to stop your son.
Yeah, and I think it's it's implied or left to interpretation that like Dracula wanted to die as well.
Yeah, because he wanted to be with her.
Yeah, he was just kind of tired and
Discombobulated.
It's interesting, right? Because I think Dracula has come to the realization that perhaps what the journey of a lot of these characters are going on, right? That nothing is worth saving. Humanity sucks. This world sucks. Life sucks. It takes everything you love away. And there's a lot of characters who are on almost all 4 major characters, right? All 4 storylines end with them being like, oh, humanity sucks, right?
Yep.
Trevor and Cypher, they just saw like a gate to hell opened up. The people they thought they were helping, like, all kind of sucked in that town. The town master was killing little boys.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, really fucked up stuff. I think, like, the one line that really stuck to me, Cypher, was like, we won, but it just feels like we lost. And Trevor's like, well, we've been living in your world for a while, right? Adventures and winning. He's like, and now we're in mine, because he's this
so
dark
good.
character, right?
So good.
And then Alucard, obviously, with what happened with the vampire hunters and literally shutting them down. Isaac just going through, like Krishna said, like giving humanity a chance, and it just continues to fail him every single time. And also always just judging him, very, subtle, unsubtle racism, right? He's walking around with these beasts from hells, and he's always told to, like, get out and not allowed in here.
Well, I mean, that he has monsters that want to kill everyone.
But, I mean, that's racism, right? Racism is what
That's
you look
true.
like.
That's true.
And then Hector, who is just the most gullible human being on the entire planet.
Hector to me was the most annoying, only because we called it from like the second episode. I'm like, if he falls for this shit, and he did, and we're just like, well, you did it to yourself, you deserve it. Now that being said, he was beaten and tortured, and
Oh yeah,
I understand
psychological
why.
stuff on him.
Yeah, I know, I
for
understand
sure.
why, but at the same time, you're
Yeah.
weak, Hector. You're
They've
weak.
got to be setting up for some type of redemption.
No, I hope
I
he
hope.
just sucks the whole time. I'm just kidding.
So would you say Castlevania season 3 was good?
It was not good
Really?
because it was great.
It was good. I'm gonna say it was good.
It was
It
very
was
good.
it was good for
It was
sure.
very good. Well, I was gonna say something about season 4. Oh, I don't think they should bring Dracula back. I think from this point on, he's far more effective as a specter, as someone that the people around the world talk about and remember, and do things in his name, and try to bring him back. But he never actually comes back. I think that'd be great. And I like the idea of Alucard becoming the new Dracula, and I like the idea of some people maybe being like, Dracula can come and save us, and that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with this monster that humanity created.
One last question I have before we move on. So the Castlevania games jump around a lot in time, right? It's not just like one time period. There's, the Belmonts are a whole line, a whole generation, right? And I think there's the picture you see in his like house, that's the first Belmont. Like that's the character from the video game, like one of the big Belmont characters. Do you think we're going to see them jump around time at some point? Especially because like some characters like Alucard, for example, right? He can live forever. So they could jump like 300 years in the future, and you could have like another Belmont with Alucard. Do we think at some point we're going to see some time jumping?
I think they've got to get through this arc that they're building up.
Yeah.
Like we're left where like Trevor and Cypher are like going and they hate humanity. Isaac is still on a warpath. Hector is and the vampires are gearing up for something, and Alucard is like pissy.
Alucard's like, bye. Bye,
Yeah.
Felicia.
So I think they're gonna finish this up first, and then maybe if there's interest in it. I mean,
Yeah.
this all comes down to like Netflix's budget and what the people want, right? Like if
Yep.
Netflix is sensing nobody cares about the show, they'll just end it.
Yeah, that's very true.
And they can.
Speaking on Netflix and shows that maybe should be canned. Space Force. Steve Carell and Greg Daniels reunite from The Office to create what I was hoping was going to be a modern, fun take on a real matter, which is the fact that the U.S. government has, in fact, created a Space Force with the intent of militarizing and protecting the space place. The space place.
The space place. I
The
like
space
that.
place.
Trademark that.
The first episode was rough. I powered through like a good trooper.
Did you watch the whole thing?
I watched the entire 10-episode run of season 1
Wow.
of Steve Carell. Is it Steve Malkovich? Or what's Malkovich's first name?
John
Malkovich. Jing Yang from
Oh my God.
yeah, so Space Force. I don't know what to say.
Did it get better after episode 3?
It got a little bit more interesting. I think part of the problem with this show is that it's not funny.
I mean, that's a huge problem with a show starring Steve Carell, and I think it's presented as a comedy. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a comedy.
It's supposed to be a comedy.
We don't even know.
It's supposed to be a comedy, but
It's not funny.
the jokes are just kind of cringy at certain points. Like there's a point where
They're
like
bad jokes. They're
Steve
terrible.
Steve Carell is like talking to what is like the Russian liaison, and they're talking about secret phone, and there's like this stupid back and forth of yes, no. It's like no, I don't care. Just do something else.
So here's the problem, right? Remember Steve Carell, I think like a year ago or 3 months ago or something, said The Office would never work today. Like he's like, if you made it in 2020, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
This is what you're seeing. That Greg Daniels and Steve Carell tried to make The Office with a higher budget, with a different setting, but it's still that kind of Office. It's that Office style, right? A bunch of incompetent people in a workspace.
Well,
the workspace being Space Force.
I would argue though, like if they did it more true to the sense of The Office,
It would
which
be
is
funnier.
which is a mockumentary as opposed to a scripted show.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be way funnier. Like if they actually took legitimately, this is what Space Force is, and then put like interesting situations. So space, like if you had done it how The Office did it, where the office setting was a paper company, and these are the people that work there, and these are the interesting stories, that would be interesting. And if you did it where this is Space Force, and the mission and goal of Space Force is to get to the moon, but that's kind of like the backstory. The interesting part is like the storylines between the characters and coming up with these hypothetical scenarios of like, hey, we're sending people to the moon and blah blah. That would have been more interesting and funny.
So
I think.
if I had to put my 2 cents in, it would just be ego that got in the way, because you're right. The story they created is much more interesting from that lens. But Steve Carell and Greg Daniels are like, we're comedy genius. Like we made The Office together. We can make something great, and it doesn't have to be an Office clone. So they took what they knew, right, which was a lot of The Office, but they're like, we're going to have a higher budget, right? We're going to have more drama in
Do we know how much this
We're gonna
costs?
I mean, if some of the effect, like I'm pretty sure it's one of the more expensive Netflix shows.
It has to be because they have cameos from one of
From
those people
everyone.
on the military branches.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a who's who
Right.
of like it's everyone you could ever want in a cameo on that table.
And I think this was like Steve Carell also wanting to flex like some of his creative juices, because he's a co-creator. He wrote episodes. And
that's why it's so confusing, because forget about the fact that the show is not funny. The characters are some of the worst characters I've ever seen on television. This is a pilot that would have aired on NBC, and it gets canned halfway into its first season. That is how bad this television
I think
show
it would have got canned
is.
halfway into the episode.
I agree. I 100% agree. And that is what's so mind-blowing, because we know that these guys are capable of better.
Christian,
The characters are terrible.
would it be better if there was a laugh track?
No, it wouldn't. No, we're not falling for that. But and even if it did, if they used a laugh track, it would be old fashioned and it would have been doomed anyway.
The thing that was interesting watching it is I just had it on in the background for the most part. I did not have to pay attention to what was going on to just kind of get the gist of what was happening. Very kind of basic story. As of right now, taping this podcast, do we know if there's a season 2 greenlit?
I think they gave him a 2-season order, but I will research that if you guys want to keep talking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not really much else to say about it.
I mean, it's garbage and it's a train wreck, and there should not be a season 2. I watched the first 3 episodes, and to me, I was going to stop after 1, but I was like, you know what?
Maybe
do this
it'll
a
get
lot.
better.
I was like, maybe it'll get better, and it got worse. Somehow it got worse into episode 3, and I'm like, you know what? And we had this conversation, I think, the last time we were on the podcast 2 weeks ago. There's too much good television to waste time. If shows do not capture in those first 3 episodes, there's no reason to invest any more time. There's too much other good television to watch, and our time is, well, maybe not now because of quarantine, but time is a limited resource, right? There's only much you can watch.
I might go watch The Wire.
You
The
should.
Wire is
I've never
great.
watched The
You want
Wire.
great
television?
I
The
might
Wire
just
is the
say
way.
fuck it at this point because there's not a whole lot coming out in the next.
I would
week or
say
two.
watch The Wire and then follow Wendell Pierce, who plays Bunk on The
Oh,
Wire.
Yeah.
If you want socially relevant tweets, and you can take that, and you can literally frame his tweets and take them to your bosses and be like, "This is what we should be doing." You got yourself a campaign right there. So
So there, season 2 for Space Force has not been greenlit.
Oh, thank God.
But it's probably got a good chance because it was number 1 on Netflix up until yesterday. So it premiered 2 Fridays ago.
I mean, when you're not competing with anything else, then
and
yes,
Steve Carell's on the show.
Yeah.
I mean,
name recognition.
Yeah.
People just probably turned it on and walked away.
I was excited for the show up until I saw the first episode because I was like, "Oh my god, it's an office show
So-
about space
So
force."
So my whole thing that I wanted to do because you and I were watching when Arjuna was gallivanting or wherever he was, so he didn't know our initial take on it. And I wanted to try an experiment, which was I wanted to have us lie to him and talk the show up,
Oh yeah.
and then have him watch it and see if that would have changed his perspective.
Yeah.
Now I did run this experiment against our parents.
Yeah.
And most likely they are watching, and I am kind of curious as to what their thoughts are on the show because I did say it was really, really good, and you know what? I lied.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, no offense to mom and dad, but they like bad TV. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Like-
so do you.
No. But it's I like it ironically. I watch the CW shows because they that's a piece of pop. Like I like comic books, right? So I watched it with the hope that it would get better. I watched 7 seasons of The Walking Dead because I really loved season 1, and I thought maybe one day it'll get back to season 1.
That's
didn't.
basically
It never did.
That's basically what was happening when I was watching Space Force. I was like, okay,
It's gonna
get better by now.
But mom and dad truly like awful television. Like dad is, I think, watching NCIS New Orleans.
But that show is built for our parents
Yeah,
in that age group. Like
Maybe
it's-
Space
So maybe
Forces
Space
as well.
Force is honestly maybe they're really gonna like Space Force. Maybe it's because remember Steve Carell is not a young actor. Greg Daniels is not a young creator. They are of our parents.
They're stuck in the early 2000s.
But they are of our parents' age, right? So
Yeah.
they're this is potentially media that's not made for us.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
well, then I'm unsubscribing to Netflix.
I mean, they can make media for everyone.
Oh, never mind. So I'm gonna say no. Space Force was not good.
Yeah, no, it was
Big-
awful.
big
I
surprise.
honestly thought you were gonna say yes.
No, it was not.
No, it was not good. I got through 4 episodes in
Wow.
like 2 minutes of another one.
Wow.
Speaking on other streaming platforms, we're gonna move into our Was It News section here, and the big one of this past week, HBO Max
Yes.
launched, and thankfully, our good brother here, Krishner, pays X amount of dollars to HBO Now. Was it?
Yeah.
And if you're an HBO Now subscriber, it automatically changed over to HBO Max. So you got that large library of nothing.
Ooh,
What
hot
did we think so far of the HBO Max launch and all that? And I'll let you guys go first, and I'll tell you my problems with it so far.
Well, I'll go first. As the owner of the account, I have not checked out any of the features of HBO Max that might make it different than HBO Now. So I don't know what I'm paying for currently.
I will say this, right? So the new streaming services that have come out in the last 6 months to 9 months, right? Apple TV Plus, Disney Plus, now HBO Max. Those are the three.
And
Right.
Peacock is coming soon.
Peacock is coming. HBO Max to me by far is the best one.
Are you
That is bold words.
high?
No, I'm not.
How
high.
much drugs are you on right
No,
now?
this
Look at
is-
me. What drugs are you on?
This is why it's the best one, right? Disney Plus doesn't have their full library on it, right? They have and they have their big tentpoles, right? Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Disney princess movies, right? Think about us as consumers. Do we care about Disney princess movies? Do we really care about most Pixar movies? Do we really, there's a lot of children's stuff on Disney Plus. Disney Plus is good for us for Star Wars. How many times can you watch the 9 episodes of Star Wars? Honestly.
In a year, probably twice.
Ugh.
Mandalorian, I probably watched twice. The Clone Wars, probably watched once or twice. There's a lot there. Here's the thing,
But
real
that's
quick.
not. But that's
Are you
not a
aware-
lot of
Are
content.
you worried?
Right?
Are you worried though that HBO Max did not launch their full library? They are missing a crap ton.
I don't care.
They're
Their
missing-
library is still better than what
They're
Disney
missing
has.
so much of the DC animated
Yeah,
movies.
it's coming.
a fucking joke.
It's coming, right?
When I don't care anymore about
Here's
HBO.
the- no,
What
but-
if Krisha cancels or moves away or just doesn't pay anymore? What am I to do?
I will say that is a strong possibility.
Yeah, I'm not fucking paying for it.
Guyana is looking mighty fine right this time. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but
You know what their headline was for launching? The Big Fucking Bang. Featured series. The
Wait,
Big
you
Bang.
watched the whole thing?
Shut up.
You've been watching the
Here's
Big
the thing.
Bang.
Here's the thing, right? I think HBO Max has the most diverse library of all of them. I think there's truly something for everyone, and I think in this early year, in the early going, if you're looking at the best bang for your buck, right? If you're a family out there, if you're a household, right, and you want something that is the best catch-all, it's gonna have a lot of movies. It's gonna have a lot of the TV shows you like to binge. It's going to have original content, high quality original content, because it's under the, HBO is under the Warner Brother, Time Warner umbrella. HBO Max to me is a no-brainer. Disney Plus, right? It has a lot of content, but Disney is still new to making streaming type content, high quality content, right? Mandalorian was good, right?
It was
It
amazing.
was great.
It was great.
It was good.
It was great.
It was good.
It was
It
great.
wasn't. All right. Well, the Bad Taco's official position is that it was great.
Yes.
Two
was
beats
good.
one. Two
Fired.
Two beats one.
We're hiring a new
but-
person.
But here's the thing, right? Like, HBO Max has the advantage because, like, say what you will about some HBO shows, they're still high quality, right?
What, are we talking Westworld? Because that was a snooze fest. Are we talking about the shitty-ass Game of Thrones last season? Because that sucked.
Watchmen.
Yeah, Watchmen, 1 out of 3.
Chernobyl,
Okay, 2.
The Wire.
The Wire.
That
The
was before
Sopranos.
HBO. That was before HBO
I'm
Max.
sorry. I'm sorry.
That's still
They
the
also
same
they have
people.
this little show that's considered the best of all time, The Sopranos.
Yeah.
I've never watched that.
I know.
Also,
We have
that
to at
doesn't
some point.
speak to my age group.
And then also HBO Max has because there's so many studio names under it. Like Disney Plus has Disney and Fox, and guess what? Fox isn't on Disney Plus. It's on Hulu. You can't get it on Disney Plus because Disney Plus is very family friendly. HBO Max has a wide range from children's programming all the way to
But I don't-
Game of
I-
Thrones.
I don't
right?
care about
you
the
could go
children's
from Looney.
programming.
What I'm saying about HBO Max is for the general consumer, it is the easy choice.
Let me ask you this about
And
HBO
We're
I
not
like
Max.
general consumers.
Let me ask you this.
We're
I-
weird consumers.
Does HBO Max have HBO at night?
Fuck off.
HBO was started with a specific product in mind. Have they gone away from their core values? I'm kidding. That should not be on there. A poor kid should not be. Well, maybe they should. I don't know. Never mind. Let's get out of this conversation. Somebody save me. Say something.
They
Say
also,
something.
they also have Fresh Prince on there.
The whole thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Things on
but
there.
HBO Max wins, dude. What's wrong with you?
Because you're not looking to the future.
How do you know?
There's
They're still making
the Star
HBO
Wars,
stuff.
all the extra Star Wars series that are coming,
That
all the
belongs to
Marvel
Disney.
series
That
that's coming
belongs
out.
to Disney.
That's
Who
what I'm saying.
gives a
Like
fuck?
in terms of like which app
Wait,
is better.
do you think
Ravi,
the Marvel
but
series
that's
are going to
not
be good?
diverse.
Oh yeah,
Ravi,
Wait, are you kidding me?
Ravi,
yeah.
Ravi.
Oh, fuck.
That's
not be
Oh.
right. No offense, but that's not a diverse library of future stuff on
Yeah.
a platform.
It's very specific.
But that's all I care about. I
Well,
don't
then,
care
that's all
about.
that's all you care about.
Sopranos
That's
and all
all
that.
you care about right now. 5
Yes.
years ago, you loved Star Trek. 5 years ago, you loved Doctor Who. Do you care about those anymore?
Star Trek, yes. Doctor Who.
Exactly. 5 years from now, if Star Wars gets oversaturated, which is going to happen, and Marvel continues to get oversaturated, which is going to happen, you won't care about those either, and you're going to be like, Disney Plus
5-year
is
bet.
a waste of time.
5-year bet. Let's take
Is
a
waste of
5-fucking-year
time.
bet.
Ravi, you've lost every bet you've ever made with this family.
That's
Absolutely true.
so
you
true.
owe Dad $100. You owe me a spray tan bet.
Christian, you owe me $100.
That was different. That was different.
Take the 100 from Dad that he owes me.
Yeah, there we
You
go.
owe Dad.
Nope, that's how I remember it. And I'm writing history. Anyway, that's the HBO Max launch. Little heated, I guess.
Oh no.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Where are we jumping to?
live action Ezra. Supposedly, the rumor mill is saying that Disney is looking for a
Oh.
male actor of color in their 30s to the mid 30s.
I'm perfect.
You would be
I
the
just don't have hair.
worst Ezra.
Oh. Wait, 30s though. So what's important? So forget about everything, right? The most important thing about this is the casting choice.
I
of
forgot how to breathe.
Oh God! Don't forget how to do that. Is the casting choice of someone in their mid-30s?
Yes.
Which would place Ezra in his mid-30s, which would place him sometime.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
No,
We've
I
only-
thought that would place Ezra in his 40s.
No. Well, that would make it even worse. That would make it even more interesting.
It puts
Ezra,
him
we
in
haven't seen Ezra. The last time we saw Ezra, he was what, 16? So we're gonna jump.
14, 16.
We're gonna jump half his life into the future. Is when we're gonna see him next. Is what you're saying.
Yes.
Which places the timeline where?
At the end
Mandalorian
of
season
6.
2.
Yep.
He's
Oh,
gonna
Mandalorian.
he's gonna appear in the Mandalorian season 2.
You mean
Like
3?
half of the other fucking cast in
Season
the Clone
3.
Wars.
What's wrong with
and
that?
This is just getting stupid. Like, I'm sorry. This is getting
How is this
stupid.
stupid?
Because so you're just gonna take a bunch of characters
Yes.
from previous shows.
Yes.
Yes.
We're gonna take all these characters
And
and
put
put
them
them
in
in
this
the
show.
show.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
What's wrong with
and
that?
then hope it makes a coherent story.
It will.
It won't.
This is the problem
Like,
of being
this is
away
the-
for 2 weeks.
this
You
is-
have too much pent up
This is the, no.
nerd.
This is the problem, right? It's just fucking fan service. That's all it is. It's not gonna be a good story.
I disagree.
It's people are not gonna be satisfied. It's gonna be too much or it's gonna be too little, and you're just the Mandalorian. All of a sudden, instead of being its own thing, is just Star Wars Rebels season 5. That's
Well, what if first of all,
Not
it's
seeing
not,
a problem.
it's not confirmed for Mandalorian.
Yep.
Second of all, what if it's good? You just automatically made it bad. Third of all, I do agree it might be tough. It might be difficult to put in all these characters that some people know from a previous show and most people don't.
Well, that's why it would not be. That's why it wouldn't be a full-on Star Wars Rebels season 5. I could see it being more.
Well,
like
you have 6. How many characters do we have? 6? Fucking 6
Wait, name
characters.
them. Wait, name them.
You have
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. You have now Ezra. You have Bo-Katan. You have
Captain Rex.
Captain Rex / Boba Fett. Right.
Oh yeah,
So it's 4 already.
that's 4.
That's just 4.
Oh, it's potentially Sabine, right?
Sabine, is that a thing?
That was a rumor.
Well, this is a rumor too, right?
Right, but that
So
was
if
like a
you
joke
buy-
rumor.
if
where,
you buy
where they were
every
just
rumor.
they were basically like, oh, the guy that held the ice cream thing was also cast. Like,
No offense, though, Ravi.
yeah.
If you're casting Ahsoka and you're casting Ezra, why wouldn't you cast Sabine?
I don't think.
Those 3 characters are linked.
But once again,
inextricably
but
from
once
the last
again,
time we saw them.
don't know that Ezra's going to be in Mandalorian season 2.
He's-
We are wildly
I would
speculating.
bet.
What are you going to bet?
I would.
What are you
I'm
gonna bet?
sorry,
Spray
I have
tan
nothing to bet.
Spray tan
But
bet.
I mean,
Spray tan.
if they're having all of these other characters appear in season 2 of Mandalorian, you don't think they're gonna put a quick cameo even of?
That's
of,
fine.
Ezra
A
in?
quick cameo.
So that
is
means he's
fine.
appearing in season 2 of Mandalorian.
Right, but it's not. The season's not about him. The season's still going to be about Yoda, baby Yoda, the child, and the Mandalorian.
I
and their quest.
guarantee if you're loading up a show with all these cameos, people aren't gonna care about what the main story is. People are gonna care about, oh my god, when is this character coming in?
What if those characters though are introduced and integrated seamlessly? So like what I mean by that is they do it in such a way where you don't need to go back and watch. Or you can go back and watch those shows, and it'll enrich the experience instead of being necessary. So, like, what if they introduce them as a crew for the Mandalorian? Unfortunately, as soon as you introduce that Darksaber, which we all, I think,
they already did.
That's what I'm saying. As soon as they introduced that Darksaber, a Rebels tie-in was inevitable.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that Darksaber is connected to a very certain set of characters and events who have only appeared,
Darth Maul,
as far as I know,
Bo-Katan,
have only together appeared in one thing. It was as soon as you saw that Darksaber, I was like, okay.
But that's
they're looking to tie these
But
two
that's
things
the thing
together,
with Star Wars.
which is not a bad thing.
But that's the thing with Star Wars that's always made it interesting.
Yes.
To me, is that it is a connected universe thing, right? And the thing that Mandalorian Season 1 did, which was interesting, it introduced us to elements that we're familiar with, stories that we're familiar with, but it was not a full-on, like, I have to know everything.
Sure.
Granted, I'm a different type of nerd when it comes to Star Wars because I want to know everything.
Right.
So if I saw these cameos, that's a fucking win for me. That's awesome.
Yeah, but there's a difference between cameos and, like, artfully doing it and dropping the entire load, right?
That's
like,
true.
why don't we just get Luke in there? Why don't we just get every single
I
character
love that.
appeared in Star Wars? Like, that's what it feels like to me, right? It feels like instead of like artfully doing it and having like the character that makes the most sense for the Darksaber would be like a Bo-Katan, right? Because for Moff Gideon to have that, he had to take it from her in the timeline, right? So it would make a ton of sense if we continue with Moff Gideon and the Darksaber that like a character like that would appear, especially because she is a Mandalorian,
Real
right?
quick,
Like it thematically ties in
to-
really
Ahsoka-
well.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We might be talking about a mute point here. This just in. Season 2 already wrapped. So Ezra, if this live action
Season
thing,
3, baby.
he would be in Season 3.
Well,
so to
hold
your point, there wouldn't be all
Hold
these
on,
introductions.
hold on a second. The reason the rumor went out is because someone knew that casting call happened. We don't know when that casting call went out. That casting call. So all the rumors of like these actors coming out is because the show has been done, the scripts leaked, the edits leaked. That same thing could be for
Did
Ezra.
they leak?
Same thing.
Really?
And also, you could still. How many times have we had stand-ins in Star Wars who later got cast? That's happened plenty of times.
Quick
that
thing,
could also be there for
quick
us.
thing to your points. Yes, Bo-Katan makes sense for the Mandalorian. So does Ahsoka.
So is
And then-
Boba Fett.
So all these characters that they're
Or
introducing
Rex.
actually are important to the Mandalorian cause in some way, shape, or form.
They make sense, but why in the same season, the same episode, most likely, right? Like you're just like it's just gonna be here's an episode with the Mandalorian meets the cast of Star. It's like a crossover.
So
almost.
Arjuna already hates Mandalorian Season 2.
Yeah.
And he hasn't even seen it.
I don't
yet.
hate it. I just don't.
You sound like me.
I
and
don't-
it's frustrating.
I don't
Yeah.
like. I don't like the idea of like just completely abandoned. Like it feels like to me they've just completely abandoned what they were doing, and they're just like, here's a piece of fan fiction.
Well, we don't know that. We don't
Yeah.
know. And like I said, as soon as they introduce that Darksaber, I think this has been in the works, I think, the whole time. They're like, we're going to introduce a couple of characters who are brand new, but then we're going to we're going to get into some characters that we already know who are going to be older and different than the characters that we've known because they grew up, right? I think this has been the plan from the beginning. As soon as we saw that Darksaber, at the back of my mind, I was like, this is great, but there's only one place for this to go, especially because Dave Filoni is involved. It doesn't make any sense otherwise. So
Yeah, and he left. Well, he didn't leave, but there's still these open-ended storylines, right? We don't know the full story of Bo-Katan. We don't know the full story of Ezra. Why not utilize a show
But
to
in
kinda
the
talk about
in the
these
context of the Mandalorian, like it's just there's so much other story in the Mandalorian that now you're introducing these other plot threads to finish up in that, and I just feel like something's gonna get left behind.
I think
some like either we're not going to be satisfied with how these answers or questions are answered, or we're going to underutilize what the Mandalorian is about.
this is what you're nervous about because this is where I see it going bad, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. The Mandalorian worked best because it's this quiet, self-contained Western kind of
Western?
a Western.
He said
Western.
you just say Weston.
I know.
What's a Weston?
Weston.
Isn't
Western
that a hotel chain?
Yeah.
The
But
Western?
the Western, sort of a show, right? It's quiet, it's slow paced. There's not a whole lot happening outside of the direct conflict that we're seeing. To Arjuna's point, when you start introducing a bunch of characters, all of a sudden now you're going to get away from the formula that we saw in Mandalorian that is unique to Mandalorian, which made Mandalorian so good in season 1. That's the only thing I would be nervous about.
Right.
Not introducing the characters, because if they do it the right way and they keep it on the Mandalorian and the child in that self-contained Western style, you can introduce these characters who are well known, but as long as it's still from the same viewpoint and done in the same style, I think it'll be a raging success. But I do understand why one might be nervous, because as soon as let's be honest, Ezra and Ahsoka, they don't lend themselves to quiet, self-contained storylines. When they show up, things usually explode, right? We've seen it. That's their entire, all their arc. So
They're
Jedi. I understand why introducing them, you might be also getting away from the formula of what made Mandalorian work in season 1. Right.
The other thing that's interesting with this casting call that I was surprised by, we know that when the last time we see Ezra, he's blasting off into unknown region of space with everyone's favorite blue boy, Thrawn.
Oh yeah, Blue Boy.
He's already been cast.
Pierce Brosnan.
We figured this out. It's Star Wars Celebration, right? It's Pierce Brosnan. Come on.
But the other thing that was interesting is we haven't seen anything or any kind of rumblings. Like, I would have thought that if these were all these leaks and everything, I would have thought that we would have seen like a Thrawn type, or we would have seen some kind of connect to a possibility of Thrawn being around. But so far, nothing's come out. So. As we get closer to, so I believe the show's coming out at the end of the year. So maybe as we get closer,
I think it's supposed to be the same, like September, October again.
Probably.
Like it was last year. Wow, last year.
That was a lifetime ago.
All right, just a couple more pieces of news here. Flash actor fired over past tweets.
And that's all we need to say about that. Really.
Hartley Sawyer, who plays the elongated man, some tweets from 2012
That's
came out.
a terrible name for a villain or a character.
He's a hero.
Hero.
Sidekick. And
Well, that
he'd been on the
explains.
show for 3 seasons, I think. His character also ended on a cliffhanger. He will not be coming back next season.
Are they recasting him?
Nope, they're just writing out the character. Because some past tweets in 2012 that were every type of homophobic, racist,
Jesus,
just horrible tweets from 2012. I actually applaud the CW in this instance. They, quickly acted, and I just think there's no room for that.
Yeah.
And like he hit them, he hadn't tried to delete them before. Like but I think I said this like last year or 2 years ago when a lot of people's tweets are being dug up. I'm like, how can you work in Hollywood anymore and not have someone that scrubs your social media? Like or even the studios have people that scrub the social media of the people you're hiring. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not hard to find, clearly, because people find this stuff very easily.
Well, so I agree, and I'm sure that will be a practice going forward.
But this has been going on for years.
We said that way back in the day.
No, I understand. And for whatever reason, it hasn't caught on. Because let's be honest, the blowback hasn't been hard enough until now. It just hasn't.
That's very true.
Now, you're going to get called out, and, justice will be served in some kind of way. So that's all I have to say about that.
Couple things of DC news here. Henry Cavill is returning as Superman.
That's
not really surprising.
Wait, what? What do you mean that's not
hugely surprising? He was done.
But what actor actually stays away?
Ben Affleck, Christian Bale, there's many.
Isn't Ben Affleck coming back?
No, but he stayed away as being Daredevil. Like, in terms of
Daredevil.
They had an option.
That movie was terrible.
They had an option to do a sequel because it did make a good amount of money,
Oh
especially for a superhero movie back then, and he turned it down.
Damn.
Then Christian Bale had the chance to return as Batman for the Justice League. He turned it down. There's many actors that turn it down.
I feel like with Henry Cavill, though, when that all came out, it just didn't feel like it was a done deal. It felt more like I need a break and go do The Witcher.
Well, I have a theory. So I think Warner Brothers was certainly done with Henry Cavill.
But Henry Cavill wasn't done with Warner.
No, I don't think that's it. I think he was open to coming back, but they probably lowballed him, and they were like, we just don't know what we're doing with the DCEU, with Justice League and everything. Here's my theory, and I told Christian this earlier. I think Warner Brothers is setting it up in case, with the Snyder Cut coming out next year, that they want to continue that timeline.
That universe.
That universe. Because the report came out that he signed on for a couple movies. There's no specifics yet. So to me, it's just a preemptive contract of, because they're putting $30 million into the Snyder Cut, right?
Yep.
That's not insignificant money. If this movie,
I would hope not.
If this movie does well, and I think there's a part of them that wants this movie to do well, I think DC is now fully gone like, fuck it. We're not going to be the MCU. We're not having one line of continuity. We're going to have anything we want, right? We're going to have 8 fucking Jokers, 12 fucking Batmans, you know? Like, we'll have 2 Justice League movies with the same cast. I don't care. Let's just do it, right? And they're just going to
that's genius.
They're just going to like why? If they truly like they don't want to copy Marvel, right? Because they've tried that and they failed at it horribly. They tried the complete opposite of being dark and gritty. That failed horribly. Doing these one-offs, right? Doing the individual Joker, potentially doing this
taking
Batman,
it movie by movie.
You know, taking it movie by
I love
movie with
that.
like open continuity that might connect. Sounds like a comic book universe, right?
So basically what you're saying is the Warner Brothers is going the Stephen King route, whereas Marvel is becoming the Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson is a known they're both novelists. Robert Pattinson outlines, and it's been rumored he's so famous now he just creates an outline and sends it to a ghostwriter who writes his stuff. Stephen King, on the other hand, back in the day would do a lot of drugs and drink, and then just sit down, have one idea, and just write for days and days and days and days, and writes as it goes. He doesn't know anything that's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. DCU is going to become Stephen King, where we're just going to put out a movie, see how it does. Recalibrate for the next one. Marvel will plan everything out. Marvel's going to be like, okay, we're going to do this,
and then they'll be like, okay, if we have like 12 Supermans and like 42 Batmans, we could just do a Crisis or one of our infamous.
They already did that though, right? On the CW.
Yeah, but you know what?
And they tied it into the.
Did it work well?
Did
it work well?
DCEU.
Oh, really? Was a letdown?
It was okay.
Crossover event of the century.
But didn't they already, like, in the Justice League movie, introduce, like, multiverse or time travel?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So and the DC is much more famous for their multiverse than Marvel is. So it would make sense, you know? And at this point, you have to trust audiences of, like, just go see the movie. And if you really care, do the research. And if you don't, enjoy the pretty colors and explosions.
Last piece of DC news.
Second to last. I have one thing I want to bring up.
Batman is resuming filming with Mr.
Robert Pattinson?
Robert Pattinson.
It is?
Yes, that's what it says on the news. So it is.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I thought he wasn't working out and being a bum.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we're gonna have like a
skinny
300 situation where they have to paint the abs on.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of scenes where he's, you know, in regular clothing in Bruce Wayne. So.
You know, you could do a chest up shot for the pot belly. All the Batman shots are chest up.
Just do some push-ups.
Wait,
right
so you know like
shoot.
when TV shows have like actresses or get pregnant, but they don't write it into the show, so they do all the creative ways to hide the pregnancy, right? You could just do that with
same idea,
right?
Yeah.
If it works, there.
He's got large bags.
I got you.
He's sitting a lot.
Yeah.
Christian, you had one more piece of DC news for us?
No, it's not news. I just have a question.
Oh, sure.
We have franchises galore. Right? We have Star Wars, we have the DCU, we have the Marvel,
we have Watchmen
franchise, we have the Game of Thrones, we have Watchmen, we have
technically Watchmen's part of DC.
We have all this crap. Why or who or when? Actually, all three of those things are we going to see? Because it's hugely popular right now, particularly because of the quarantine. When are we going to see Dungeons and Dragons come to the screen?
Oh, easy. I believe Amazon signed a recently. This was announced at Comic-Con last year. Mm-hmm. Amazon signed a television series deal with a big Dungeons and Dragons stream group whose name I can't remember, so I apologize. It's not the big screen, but it's the streaming screen at least, and it's an ongoing type series. There's that. Apple TV also announced kind of like a fantasy Dungeons and Dragon-esque type show with one of the actual actors from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Well, the first season already on
so
Apple TV Plus.
Yeah. So they've got shows out there, but nothing in the sense of
I'm against that honestly because Dungeons and Dragons is all about the imagination.
No. So when I say Dungeons and Dragons, there's been some great novels and characters created in the universe of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm talking about like actual stories.
Building on that stuff?
Like I'm talking about legendary characters like the Dragonlance novels. right?
Like glass staff.
Which, by the way, if you did, would be hugely popular and lends itself to like 6 to 7 movies per thing.
They tried though a fantasy movie. It was called World of Warcraft.
It was actually just called Warcraft.
Warcraft.
It was a great movie.
And it did really, really well. And they didn't do anything
Internationally,
else.
yeah.
And I don't know why. So
Oh, that's a good
question
point.
mark.
That's a good point. All right. Well, I just think
David
it seems
Bowie's son
like,
directed
Doug
that.
Jones.
I just feel like it's a matter of when, not if.
Most likely, I mean, the Dungeons and Dragons popularity in the last like 10 years has just gone through the
The
fucking
last
roof.
since Stranger Things came out, and then again when quarantine started, it's sort of.
I've been playing since I was in college.
I stopped playing, so I don't know if it's that popular.
That's because you're a loser.
No, I just like video games.
Yeah, I know you're a loser.
I like to Netflix and sit
You're
by
a
myself and
dumb
cry.
Oh.
That's going to do it for us, folks, on the podcast here, the Was It Good podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Was It Good, on Instagram at Was It Good BTM. The podcast is live streamed every Monday on twitch.tv/Was It Good. As always, hit us with questions, comments, concerns. And to wrap, we will be dropping links in descriptions and tweets of where you can go and donate, where you can go and protest to definitely kind of fight what is happening in the world. Our promise here on this podcast is we are going to try and diversify what content we consume because we like content. My personal thing is it needs to be sci-fi because I love sci-fi. So if it's not sci-fi, then
It shouldn't all be sci-fi. And
that's all I care about.
We've watched things that aren't sci-fi.
Name one thing.
Triple Frontier.
Jesus fucking
Oh
Christ.
wow.
That movie was
That's the
stupid.
first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you once again, and goodbye.
Okay, we stopped recording. We are still streaming.
You wanna
Oh,
cut this one?
hello. Hello.